Yes, I know what you're thinking. That doesn't look much like a clock. This is the 9th collaborative project that I've done with Dave, and as you can see, his CAD renderings show that we started in a completely different direction with a circular clock and then radial arms showing minutes per the hour. That design developed quite a bit, and then we decided it was just too complicated to engineer, so we simplified it down to its essential essence, which is a single line of LEDs, like this. And then we resized it a little bit to accommodate the size of the materials we had available. So here's a 4-inch diameter, and here it is working. So as you can see, if you look very carefully, that light at the bottom is fading up and down very slowly. And then when you wave your hand over it, it shows the time. So now it's showing the time in hours and then minutes, one light for every 5 minutes. And then it goes back to fading up and down. You can set the time by pushing buttons on the back. So here I am setting hours and then also minutes, or the other way around, I think. I'm not sure. But that makes it very easy to set the time. Just push a button here, that's the hours, that's the minutes. Here it is again fading up and down very slowly, which is its default mode. That's what it does when it's just sitting there on your mantelpiece. And then if you wave your hand over the top, again, it will show the hours and minutes. This is a nice close-up showing that. My process starts with designing the schematic, which is shown here, and then working on the electronics. I use an old-school system for prototyping electronics that I first learned in the 1980s called wire wrapping. So this is this gun that I use to wrap wires down onto little posts in the circuitry. It goes pretty quickly, and it's easy to edit and change because I can unwrap wires and rewrap them. After making each connection, I highlight it with yellow marker so I know where I've been in the schematic and what I've accomplished. Here I am installing the microcontroller chip. This is the chunk of metal that we decided to use for the base. It's 4 inches diameter and about 4 inches long. And here I am facing off the end, which is a traditional first step in machining. So I'm going to speed that up shortly so you can see it happening more quickly, but you can see my hand in the bottom left turning the handle to move the cutting tool across the surface there. It's kind of hypnotic to watch lathe turning, either in wood or metal, and I've been learning machining skills recently and becoming quite good at it. Here I am hollowing out the inside so that I have a reference surface to grip with the chuck when I flip this end around to hold it, so I have it all aligned properly. And now I'm drilling some holes in the back for the buttons, which you may have seen earlier there. You can see the digital readout from my milling machine and all of the precision that I have there down to 1/1000th of an inch. Testing fit of the buttons here. Now I haven't made the recess yet for the buttons, so that's a first test. Now I've set it up on the mill to make a recess to flatten out that section so the buttons have a flat surface to index down into. The cylinder was a little too large for my mini lathe, so I took it over to my friend Jason's workshop where he has a much bigger standard machine lathe. Here he is centering the metal up and surfacing the outside surface so it looks nice. He's taking maybe a couple of thousandths inch off just to get past that rough external surface and smooth it all out so it looks nice and shiny. He's applying lubrication there to keep it clean and cut well. Now I'm back in my shop with my small lathe, and I'm making the recess for the plastic that will slide over the end here. There I'm detailing the corners with a file just to make them nice and soft, and here I'm testing fitting the acrylic tube on, and it's a perfect fit. It's a really nice snug fit. I'm proud of that. Now I'm just checking the size of that tube because I'm going to cut a circle for the lid of the clock out of this 1/2 inch piece of sheet aluminum, so I'm marking to center. So here I am drawing a circle that I can follow with the bandsaw to cut out a rough shape for the circle. So here I am cutting it out. This is 1/2 inch thick aluminum, so it takes a little time to cut. I'm speeding up the video here so you can see me cutting the whole circle. And finished there. Now I chuck it up onto the lathe, and I'm cleaning up the surface so that it'll look nice and shiny on the very top surface. Machining is very hypnotic to watch, and even when I'm doing it, I just really enjoy watching it, the whole process of transforming metal on a spinning machine. So here I am using some isopropyl alcohol to clean up all the surfaces and remove the oil residues so that I can put a finish on it. And here I am spinning up the lathe very slowly so I can apply shellac to the whole surface here. Shellac is a nice simple finish, preserves the metal so it doesn't oxidize and looks nice and shiny. And then the same thing, cleaning up the lid that I had turned previously and putting a bit of shellac on the top there. Now I'm cutting out a piece of transparent, dark, smoke-colored acrylic that's covered in paper in the video here, but that paper gets removed. So I'm cutting it out on the bandsaw, testing the fit. It's a little bit too big, and then what I do is I use my big belt sander to sand it down to the line to get a precision fit. Here I am testing the fit, and it's not quite fitting, so I'm going to go back to the sander again and tidy it up right down to the line so it's a nice precision fit. Here we go. I've peeled the paper off. Now you can see that it's a translucent layer that forms the bottom plate for the base. Now I'm going to drill holes all the way through the plastic and into the metal so I can put screws in there to secure that plate to the bottom. That plate will then hold the circuit board, so it will be mounted to the inside of that plate. Now I'm going to tap a thread into the base there so that the screws can go in there and screw the base to the bottom. It's tricky to tap aluminum. You have to go back and forth a lot, like with any metal. Here I am painting the recess where the buttons and the power jack go, just to make it look a little nicer, and adding a little hot melt glue and gluing in the DC power jack. It's a snug fit and the glue grips it very nicely. Now I'm putting the screws in, having countersunk the holes for the base there, so they go in and secure that base really securely, and it's nice and flush to the bottom. Now I have to connect the wires from my circuit board that I built earlier to the components in the wall of the base there, as you can see on the right. So I'm securing them first to the connections on the circuit board, and then reaching in there with the hemostat to hold the wire and connect it to the DC jack there. This is the LED strip that I glued onto a piece of 1/2-inch clear acrylic so it can slide just snugly up inside there. This will allow us to adjust the height of the LEDs in the cylinder to our preference, or Dave might choose to change it to a different height than I did. I'm just test fitting now to make sure the acrylic is fitting really well. Everything lines up inside, and it does very nicely. The final step is to write the code, or firmware actually, because firmware is software that goes into hardware, the little chip that I just took out of the programmer and I'm plugging into the circuit board right now. So now I'm testing the code to see if it works. I'm pushing the set buttons to see if they show the time correctly and the hours and the minutes. And then also, of course, there's that fading feature that I wrote the code for too, so the LED fades up and down when it's in its standby mode, not displaying time. And here it's displaying the time. The top plate of the clock has a touch sensor that is so sensitive that you can just wave your hand near it to activate the clock.